on the bench is this Kenmore Mini Ultra. This machine looks familiar because this is that IKEA machine in a Kenmore box with a different knob here and a different color case. This machine and that IKEA machine, when they were made, were kind of the cheapest things you could get, and so the quality control on them wasn't high, and this machine is having some serious stitch issues, which I think are related to two problems. When I was given this machine, it didn't have a pedal, so I assumed that somebody bought it, tried it out, didn't get good results, and just stuck it in a box and bought a different cheap sewing machine, because it was given to me with a Brother LS2125i, which is another low-end machine, but that 2125 works fine. Anyhow, so the issue, this machine's making big loops and it's not catching the right hand side stitch. So I'm gonna move the camera to zoom in on the needle area and explain what I think the issues are. Alright. So this is the needle area on the Kenmore, and it is difficult to see in the video, but the needle clamp looks crooked, and using a pin through the eye of the needle here, when I push that pin in and it feels like it's kind of straight and looks like it's lined up straight with the eye of the needle, you can see it's off at an angle. So this needle is crooked. About 5-10 degrees there. So that is impacting the stitch quality and making it harder for the hook to catch thread out of the back of the scarf. And I also inspected when the needle is down, carefully looking. Let me get this to the other side so the hook is more visible. Checking as the hook comes in here, looking at that space behind the needle between the hook and the scarf, and that space seems quite large. So the needle is crooked and that gap is too big for the loop to form properly. I'm going to try to adjust both of those things. I did, first things first, check the needle height to make sure that the needle was going up and down properly, and that the eye was below the hook correctly as the hook went by. That seems to be okay. It seems to be crooked and have a bad spacing. And that's not surprising, because again, this machine was kind of the cheapest you could get when it was new. So even though it has a lot of metal parts and now is a decent machine, because you can buy a machine with fewer metal parts, they were not doing quality control on these out of the factory, and it needs some finer adjustment to stitch properly. Alright, so the adjustment for the crooked needle on this Kenmore is the clamp for the needle bar, and right in that hole is above that spring is the spot where I can line up the little hex set screw that clamps the needle bar in place. So I'm going to take and gently loosen that, and then rotate the needle bar without changing the height to straighten that hook out, or to straighten that needle bar out so that the needle is square to the hook. Alright. And then the other thing, to be able to move the needle position forward and back, there's a single screw here behind the light bulb, and that screw clamps this bracket and that bracket together. The black bracket is the main frame of the machine, and then this silver section is the lower guide for the needle bar. So if I unclamp that, I can slide the lower bracket ever so slightly forward, so that, or back rather, back, because we need to shrink the gap between the needle and the hook. And that will adjust that. So I will be back when I have made those two adjustments. Alright, well, I saw this first screw and did not see there's a second screw behind there, and in order to reach that screw to loosen it for this needle bar adjustment, I have a long reach Phillips 1/4 inch drive socket set down in there on the screw, and then I am reaching in there with a low profile 1/4 inch wrench to loosen it while I apply pressure to the top with a screwdriver. So that screw is very challenging to get to, but now that I have these two separated, I can fix that adjustment for the hook to scarf clearance, and this machine should start stitching real good. Alright, after fishing around and correcting the gap behind the scarf to the hook, this machine is now catching both sides of the zigzag instead of only catching one. I also straightened the needle a bit, and it's now facing directly ahead instead of having a 5 or 10 degree turn to the needle eye. And with those two corrections and replacing that bobbin case that was collecting thread, I guess 3 corrections on this little machine, it's stitching quite nicely. So again, this machine was the cheapest machine they would make at the time, so the quality control wasn't great, but it's all metal where it counts, and if you are willing to adjust it and get everything where it really belongs, because they weren't checking them super hard at the factory, these are nice little machines to pick up as a portable machine and stitch really well with a little bit of effort.